Strap yourself in because we're set up, switched on and ready to go.
Hello and welcome to Entrepreneur Survival Guide. On today's episode, we're joined by Lee Sharp, who is a trained psychologist specialising in workplace mental health. Lee's joining us today to talk all about resilience in the workplace and to give us some ideas and thoughts on how we can improve it, the impact it has, general chit-chat about workplace mental health. For those that have previously tuned into Entrepreneur Survival Guide, you'll understand that we've not been around for a very long time. Originally launched pre-COVID, and this is our first episode back. So it has taken me some time to get back on the horse, so to speak, after COVID. We'll talk about why that is and the situation in the background to what's delayed that. But for today, let's welcome Lee Sharp. Lee, welcome to the episode.
Hi, Martin. Thanks.
No problem. So, Lee, we're here today. We're going to talk about mental health resilience. So, first of all, can you start by telling us a little bit about what mental resilience is? A bit of a definition, I suppose, around that.
Yeah, of course. So, mental resilience refers essentially to the capacity to cope with, adapt to, and recover from stress and challenges and adversity. In the workplace, mental resilience specifically involves the ability to maintain a stable and productive mental state despite pressures and demands of a job. Generally encompasses various psychological and behavioural attributes that enable individuals to navigate work-related stressors and setbacks whilst maintaining their well-being and their performance.
Right. Okay. So it's all about being able to stay focused, putting up with some pressures, some stresses, and being helped to handle that. So I guess for me, what I'm feeling like there is, it's a bit like going to the gym, lifting some weights and that really stressing out my muscles, but then being able to recover quickly from that and get on. Would that be right in saying?
Yeah, essentially. And the more resilience you have, perhaps, is like building more muscle. So eventually you can actually put up with more stresses or more difficulties over time than perhaps you could before you started to practice the mental resilience.
So like I could lift more with my muscles, so to speak, which I could do with more with, to be fair. Then I can handle more stress.
They're slightly different things in a way. Resilience is sort of a broader, more comprehensive concept, and it can encompass the ability to adapt, to recover and grow in the face of adversity and stress and other challenges, whereas stress management tends to focus more specifically on techniques and strategies to reduce or manage stress in the short term. They're sort of different in their scope, goals and approach, but are broadly interrelated.
Okay, so the picture I'm building out is, I guess, we've just had the Paris Olympics, haven't we? So those Olympians are under a lot of stress and pressure as they come up to the line, so to speak, for the 100 meters. But rather than that, actually drives them forward, that actually pushes them forward, so they perform better than what they would have done previously because they've got a great way to handle resilience.
Yeah. So, and great ways to handle any immediate stresses that are happening in that moment. So, the scope of stress management is on immediate short-term strategies to manage and reduce stress, whereas the scope of mental resilience is a broader range of skills and attributes that would have more long-term adaptability, emotional regulation and growing from adversity. So, in the immediate moments, yes, they'd be using stress management techniques, but in order to get there over the 4-year period, they would have demonstrated incredible mental resilience.
Okay. So in summary, why would a leader, a business owner, somebody who's running an organisation of some sort, want their employees to have more resilience? What would be the business benefits to that?
Well, I mean, I can think of 5 reasons immediately why resilience is important for employees and therefore why it's important to business leaders. So There's enhanced performance. Resilient employees are generally better at maintaining high levels of productivity and performance. Improved well-being. Mental resilience, we know, contributes to overall well-being and reducing the risk of stress-related illnesses and burnout. Burnout is when somebody's becoming overwhelmed with their job, and generally, if somebody's experiencing burnout, the likelihood of them leaving grows quite a lot. There's increased job satisfaction for people who can cope with and overcome workplace challenges. Again, they're less likely to leave, so you don't have that turnover issue. Resilient people are generally better team members, and they can produce a positive and supportive team. And finally, it produces organisational stability. A resilient workforce can adapt to changes better, cope with uncertainties, and contribute to the stability of a successful team. So by fostering mental resilience in their employees, both the individuals benefit and the organisations can better navigate complexities and demands of the modern workforce, really, and be more healthy, more productive, and more adaptable to the work environment, which is why we, you and I have been working on the Workplace Excellence Programme.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think we'll allude, the Workplace Excellence Programme is going to be something that's quite radically different compared to what a lot of offerings are out there. And we'll tell people a little bit more about that later. So the interesting thing that I've just picked up on there, though, is what I've seen on the internet a lot about mental health is just about a tick box exercise, right, for compliance reasons, and just making it just seems to be a bit of a buzzword at the present moment. Organisational leaders should put a tick box to say they're supported on the mental health side of things, which really frustrates me to no end. And what you just identified there is some real key business drivers. So it's we all understand that mental health well-being is the right thing to do for humans, but a lot of, at the end of the day, is we've got business targets to hit, and we want to hit those business targets, and they can overpower us and take priority in a business workplace environment. But what you've just mentioned there is that basically my guys are going to get along better, which means they'll do better work. They'll be able to handle stress better and high intense moments better, which means we'll get better results. They're going to have less time off. They're going to stay with my company longer. So all that seems to boil down into ways that I will get more revenue in and save costs as well at the bottom. Would that be right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So doing a good workplace wellbeing program generally generates a return on investment of anywhere from bad ones generate a £1 return on investment for every pound spent. So they generally break even. Average ones get anywhere up to about £4 per pound. Really good ones that go proactive as well as reactive. Most workplace wellbeing programs in existence at the moment generally are reactive. They wait until somebody is ill or is showing signs of problems, and that's harder to deal with. So those that are proactive, that try and educate people and give people the tools to avoid becoming unwell in the first place, they can generate a return on investment of anywhere up to £9.60, according to the most recent reports from Deloitte in their report from, I think it was March this year.
Right. Okay. So there's a lot to gain, but and before I get sidetracked onto that, let's come back in and let's see if we can get some useful nuggets of information that people can take away from this and actually implement in their workplace to improve people's mental health, which will help improve their performance, as mentioned. So what are some of the common psychological stresses that employees face, and how can these affect their mental health and business performance in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, most of us would see these anyway. So the most common psychological stressors for employees, the Health and Safety Executive have been working on this for quite a long time now. They talk about 6, but I'm going to mention a few of them. The first one generally is workload and time pressures. Heavy workloads lead to excessive work demands and can lead to burnout and stress. Tight deadlines, constant pressure to meet those can cause anxiety, and that can reduce the quality of work. And long working hours can disrupt work-life balance and lead to fatigue and personal time. So that's the workload and time pressures. Job insecurity is quite a big one. People can fear being laid off, or job losses can lead to chronic stress. So any sort of instability within the organisation can cause those issues. Economic instability, if the company themselves are in any difficulties, that can cause stresses, but also so can individual money worries outside of work can cause problems and make us worry about our job. Lack of control over our work is a third pressure, and limited autonomy or rigid work processes, so we don't have a lot of say over our work. Now, obviously certain occupations, that's just the way it is. You know, a firefighter can't necessarily control exactly how he goes about fighting the fire, but other things outside of the actual coal face, maybe there can be some elements of control given to them. Even then, where there is limited autonomy, you could still have too rigid a work processes. So sometimes, even in that firefighting environment, if you discuss how things are going to work with the team, even if there's very limited input, still having that discussion can help. Workplace relationships is another stressor that can have issues as well. So interpersonal conflicts or a lack of support from managers. The list goes on. Role ambiguity and conflict, performance pressures if somebody's not doing very well, or if their expectations are too high on them, or if there's poor evaluation and feedback. Work environment is another, physical conditions or the organisational culture itself. Things outside of work, right? Personal life stresses can have an impact as well. So I think I've rattled off about eight or nine different things there. The impact that those things can have, they all generally have the same sort of impact, right? They can increase stress and anxiety. And we know that persistent stress can lead to anxiety disorders themselves if unchecked. Stress and anxiety, worry, irritability, difficulty concentrating. Depression can be another impact if this isn't dealt with. Burnout, I've mentioned a little bit already, and then sleep disturbance for individuals. So they're on an individual level. And then, of course, that has company impact, right? On business performance, decreased productivity, higher absenteeism, reduced employment engagement, and lower job satisfaction. And all of those things increase the risk of turnover. And turnover for any business is not good. So trying to address those stressors with effective strategies, supportive workplace policies, effective and relevant resources for a company that the employees are going to use can all help to improve both employee well-being and business performance.
Okay, so we've got a list of stressors which, you know, for a lot of people they'll understand what they are, and they'll also either have come across them back for themselves or seen them in employees. And, you know, there's some easy fixes in there, like make sure it's a done with environment, not a done to environment. So, you know, discuss changes with your team rather than just implement changes, get their feedback before it actually happens so that people feel like they've got a voice. There's also other easy fixes that have been in businesses for a long time, like have one-to-ones with your staff, ask how they're feeling. And that's not just ask how they're feeling to be wishy-washy. That's so that you can understand what's going on in their minds. So, for example, for me, when we used to work in a contact centre, understanding what's happening in somebody's home life can be useful, because I know if they're stressed and depressed, then that's potentially going to come through when they're speaking to a customer on the phone. And if I am aware of the situation, I can help with the situation, and together we can improve how that person's feeling. And that's the right thing to do from one human to another. But that's B's going to be the right thing to do for my customer service. They're going to provide better customer service. In terms of actual practical techniques or strategies, what's some really quick fixes that employees can do quickly in the workplace to help build mental resilience?
you've got to have a way of being aware of them, right, to start with. You've got to have managers or people in place that understand the importance of this. So all the things that we've just talked about, the ROI for a business, managers do need to understand why that is relevant, but also so do employees. Employees need to understand that the company isn't just going, hey, how are you? Because they don't want them to have poor performance at work. They actually, the benefits are there for everybody to have as well. In terms of building resilience, there's a number of techniques that people can try and use. Mindfulness and meditation techniques are generally pretty good. But again, a lot of workplaces will just suddenly go, hey, we're having a mindfulness afternoon without any explanation about why this is relevant. Or they'll put a fruit bowl in the corner because we know that diet is important. And actually, if this isn't, but it's true though, we've all been in these organisations. That they're trying to do the right thing, but they're not building it in the right way. So whilst I can sit here and list a number of things that help to build resilience, unless individuals understand how and why this is relevant to them, not just to their company, people still generally don't do it. So everything I'm about to list off, we all know, but lots of people won't be doing it. So mindfulness and meditation is one that can help you to engage in staying present and understanding what your thoughts are doing. But if you don't know how to manage unhelpful thoughts, that on its own can be quite a dangerous thing to just do, because then you just sit there having the stresses and anxieties going round and round. The second one, physical activity. We all know regular exercise is good for us. It can be anything that we're capable of doing, and having active breaks. Healthy lifestyle choices, balanced diet and adequate sleep. These are all things that we generally don't do very well. We often have our phone in our hand. We all know the blue light's bad, but how many of us actually switch it off? We all know we shouldn't be using our phone, for a few hours before bed, but actually how many people are still checking things just before they go to bed? Positive thinking and reframing. Again, you can't just tell somebody to do that. You have to educate somebody on, well, why do I need to think positively, or why do I need to reframe my negative thoughts? You can't just tell people to do that, because often people don't understand that they are having negative thoughts in the first place. So separating somebody from the thoughts and the immediate urge to act or respond to them, it isn't easy. And that's cognitive behavioral techniques that people can learn if they are having difficulties with any of these things. That leads on to emotion regulation. So there's 5 things that I've talked about immediately, practical steps that can help to build resilience. Strong relationships is another. Developing specific stress management techniques is another. And then being able to time manage and develop a growth mindset and self-care and relaxation. These are all practical techniques that can be used, and by incorporating them into daily life, we can build and increase employees' mental resilience, enhance their ability to cope with stresses, and improve overall well-being, performance at work, and generally happiness with life and ability to cope with what life throws at it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you said really at the beginning there is vitally important. I mean, it can't be done in isolation. So the fruit bowl can't be placed there, or let's do a yoga session or a mindfulness session in the workplace if the culture's toxic, right? So the vision has got to make sure that it gets all its ducks in a row, to make sure that the leaders are acting in the right way with their team members, that people are bought into the vision of the company, the purpose of the company, all the values and the targets that are set within that company all need to align under one nice umbrella, rather than going, right, so we're going to set an unreasonable sales target where you need to sell £1 billion worth of widgets in the next 24 hours, but feel good about it and don't get stressed because we've got you a mindfulness session this afternoon and a bowl of fruit. Right? The two can't go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
They've got to come together in a synergy.
that is kind of what a lot of companies are doing. And I don't want to be critical of them, because something is better than nothing in many ways. But equally, if those organizations think that you can run a stress management course once a year and that's it, well, then actually that's not going to work, is it? And the amount of times that organizations have asked for just very specific training, and we deliver the training, and during the training it becomes obvious that actually there are other issues going on, and we go back to the company and we mention those, and we make suggestions about how it might be addressed. Actually, many of the companies just don't have the time or the inclination to follow that up. They've done what they wanted to do, and maybe that's got to be enough for now. I guess the positive side of that is that eventually most of those companies do end up coming back to us and going, okay, we've tinkered with this, and this. How do we make this a more measurable and a more targeted effort? And again, that's when we talk about the Wellbeing Excellence Programme, and which is completely molded for each company to use in the needs that they need to do it.
How can business owners maintain a healthy perspective on their work to avoid burnout? Because I think you mentioned burnout a little bit earlier as well, and I think that is important.
Yeah, so maintaining a healthy perspective on work is crucial to avoiding burnout and ensuring the long-term well-being of both business owners and employees. We've covered a few of the areas already, but strategies to help maintain that sort of perspective: boundary setting, having clear and defined working hours and sticking to them, and trying not to check things outside of that, and also having a designated workspace. In this era of hybrid working, people can find themselves sitting at weird places, or even on their sofa. That's not a good idea. You want to have a clearly defined mental disconnection from work. Prioritizing self-care, having regular breaks, good nutrition and time management is important. And then having hobbies, having interests outside of work, all of these things are really important, and having social connections, and engaging in specific coping strategies, and maybe even seeing a professional if you need to, be it a professional mentor to discuss business challenges with, or personal challenges with. And then ultimately, having this growth mindset idea is very important, to be able to embrace challenges and to view those as opportunities to learn and grow, and focus on personal development, and use any failures. A lot of psychologists don't like using the word, but actually a failure should be an opportunity to reflect and learn, and reflect on that experience and identify any lessons, and to apply them moving forward.
Okay, fab. Go on, sorry, you was about to say?
I was just going to add a couple of final things on psychological techniques that might specifically help you stay focused on the bigger picture, so that you can maintain some perspective on everything. And that personal goals are very important. Specifically define them. What are the aspirations both inside and outside of work, and how are you going to get that fulfillment together, and balance the professional ambition with those personal interests. Practice gratitude. Now, people don't do this enough. Actually recognize what you do have good going in your life, be it people, be it work, be it hobbies, and make sure you give enough positive focus on those things as well. And maybe even tell people sometimes that you appreciate them, because that goes a very long way in the other direction, right? Even if we don't always feel it ourselves, if we start sharing how we feel about others, we sometimes get a lot of it back. Stay present. This is a mindfulness element. Stay present in the moment. Don't worry about the past mistakes, because that turns into depression. Don't predict the future uncertainties, because that is the nature of anxiety. So staying on the present is very important. Generally, by doing these strategies, employees can stay focused in the present perspective, and that can have positive outcomes for employers and individuals themselves.
Brilliant. There's some really helpful, useful tips on there, which I imagine that you've alluded to having a program sat there in the background to work with. I know we've talked a little bit before we started recording this podcast today. It's designed to help small business owners and large organisations as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the Workplace Excellence Programme and how that's going to be coming out in the future potentially?
Yeah, so hopefully you and I are going to be talking about that again, specifically at some point in the future, and maybe at some point we'll be able to add a little taster of what that might look like to this recording as well. Essentially, it's a stepped program that companies can look at and can implement themselves. That's the aim, if they feel able to, or alternatively, they can engage with me and we can help them walk through it eventually so that they can completely run it themselves. But it's essentially two programs, one that they can completely do themselves, or they can pull us into and have us assist at various stages. And it involves speaking to and listening to your employees, not just assuming that we or you know what they do or don't need for their mental health and well-being. It's about listening to them, listening to your business, assessing what is currently happening, and building a slow program of improvement. There's no rush to do this. It needs to be specifically targeted and measured, and we have designed a program that does that through every step, a very simple one, and we'll talk about it more in due course.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Lee. Yeah, I think the key here is it's not just a tick box exercise for a mental health compliance. It will do that, and that's the amazing thing, but it's going to shift the company culture, the company performance, and the employees' perception of work and enjoyment of work, and thus their outside life as well. So it sounds like an amazing program that can have an amazing impact, and look forward to talking about that more in the future. So, Lee, I can't help do anything other than thank you very much for your time today. It's been great having you on, and I look forward to having you on in future episodes as well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Martin. Take care.